Welcome back to the creative process. Today we're going to be talking about some different kinds of brainstorming techniques. The first thing I want you to do is go ahead and pause the video and you're going to watch this video by James Taylor. It's just a few minutes and it's how to be more creative. So one of the things that he points out is that if you have a sick fish, you don't want to change. You're not going to get rid of the fish and put a new fish into the tank. You're going to change out that water and clean up the environment. So the environment that you're in and the culture is really important to fostering creativity. Another thing that he talks about that I wanted to point out was this idea of boundary crossing, and we've talked about it before. It's basically the idea that you're going to be more creative if you have branched out into other disciplines, into other areas, so that you can sort of take ideas from one discipline and merge them with ideas from maybe your discipline or even another discipline to come up with innovative and creative ideas. Stephen Johnson talks in one of his videos about the problem of high infant mortality rates in developing countries and how to solve that problem. The simple truth is that it comes down to keeping the babies warm. That is what will keep the babies alive. So, of course, we have incubators in our hospitals. These, thousands and thousands of dollars go into the machine, and it simply keeps the baby warm. So we could send these $1,000 machines to developing countries, but that would help for about a year until the machine broke down. And then they would just have a broken machine. So the engineers came up with this idea after seeing that the people were able to keep vehicles running. So what they did is they combined those two ideas and they came up with an incubator that ran completely on automobile parts, so that when the machine broke down, the people would have the knowledge of how to fix the machine, keeping the babies warm and therefore lowering that infant mortality rate. So for reflection part 1 for today's work, what we're going to do is we're going to watch a little video, and then I'm going to have you come up with a solution to a problem,
which only 3% of people can solve. Imagine you're a doctor and one of your patients is about to die from a tumor. You can't perform surgery, but you do have a ray gun which can focus a high-intensity ray to destroy the tumor. Now, there's a problem. At this high intensity, the ray will also damage the healthy tissue it passes through. If you try to lower the intensity, while the healthy tissue is safe, it no longer has the energy to destroy the actual tumor. So, how can you destroy the tumor without damaging the healthy tissue?
So go ahead and do some brainstorming by yourself and try to come up with a solution to that problem. Go ahead and write it down in your journal. And then after you've sort of thought about that and brainstormed some ideas, for the answer, the rest of the video is down in the rest of the content. So today we're going to be talking about brainstorming, and then we're also going to be talking about sketching. So sketching is going to be more of a focus if you are in arts and fine arts. So Stephen Johnson I have 2 videos down there. The one that I really want you to watch is the graphic brainstorming. It takes you through the process of brainstorming with a little bit of history, and it explains how your brain works and how we've developed these systems for brainstorming. One thing that Stephen Johnson talks about in his graphic brainstorming video is the age of enlightenment and how all these ideas started to come together when people started to come together, coffee houses, and talk about their ideas, and they came together to brainstorm. so that it wasn't just one person over here having an idea and somebody over here having an idea, and the two never came together. Um, so creativity is not just for the arts. Creative thinking affects every area and every discipline. Um, so creativity, you need to think of it sort of as a network. So neurons are firing in your brain and they're making new connections, and that is where new ideas come from. A lot of times it's really messy, and most of the time it's very, very slow. So we do talk about in the creative process that the aha moment, that time when you finally can see the light and you have the idea. Well, the truth of it is that those that problem solving has been going on for a long time in your brain. It's been incubating. Sometimes people work their entire life on a certain problem, and the process of thinking through that is what is going to be called the slow hunch, which brings them to this aha moment. But it's not as though you're just struck by lightning and come up with an idea. It is years and years of process sometimes to get to those ideas. So one thing that artists will do is they will do some thumbnail sketching. So go ahead and watch this thumbnail sketch video. So for reflection part 2, we're going to do a little study on chaos and order. So what does chaos mean to you? It's just this craziness that's happening, and then the opposite of that is order. So they seem like they're completely two different things. But if you're doing almost anything, the process is messy. The process isn't clean and tidy and nice and easy. It often comes with a lot of mess, a lot of sometimes problems and problem solving. So I want you to think about, what does chaos and order mean to you? And what you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of paper and you're just going to do 4 little thumbnail sketches. So break it into 4 little spots and show me that process of chaos to order. So for an example of that, this was a play that we did in the spring of 2020, and it actually never opened. It got closed down the last day of what we call technical rehearsal, and all of the work just sat there for months and months, and nobody has seen the play. If you look down here, the first picture, it shows my desk while I'm in the middle of the process of creating a 3-dimensional scaled model for the set for Bonnets, How Ladies of Good Breeding Are Induced to Murder. And it's really messy. There's paint everywhere. There's like research pictures everywhere. There's a little paint palette, a knife, glue. My computer's in the background. Certainly, if you woke it up, there would be different research ideas. So that process is really, really messy. The middle picture there is the set model, the scale model completed, and this is what is presented to the director and the actors, and then draftings are made, blueprints are made from this. I make the blueprints, and then the scene shop builds it, and it gets painted, and then the production happens. So the final picture is the actual set with some costumes in front of it and some lighting on it. So that is an example of chaos developing into order. So the next thing that we're going to talk about are different ways to arrive at an idea. In our book this week, we're reading chapter 8, which is all about the spine. The way that I see spine is it's basically the backbone of a project. So it's the idea of that project. It's the idea that's holding the project up. So there are a lot of different ways to arrive at ideas. I want to talk to you about this little project that you can see on the screen. One thing I did recently was I painted what is called a foaling board. So foaling is a silly game where they've basically combined bowling with football. So you have these boards and you throw a football and you try to knock over the pins. High Caliber Karting was putting in a foaling section of their entertainment company. So they had these 50 huge boards that they needed painted, and they wanted different artists to paint the boards. So for my board, I wanted to focus on the company, and I wanted it to be fun because that was the whole purpose of the project. So what I did is I sort of researched the company, and I found out that they were putting in archery tag and foaling at the same time, and that their mascot is this panda bear head that the owner wears, and it's pretty much complete silliness. But so I took all those ideas and I combined them together. Again, we've got bowling mixed with football for foaling, and then they're doing the archery tag and they're doing the foaling. So I combined those two ideas and put in their panda bear. So it all sort of came together for this really silly idea. It had that spine through it, that spine of entertainment and the two different sports coming together and their mascots. And that was sort of the spine that held the project all together. And it is easy to sort of think that, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And oftentimes I feel like it's too wide open. So what you have to do as an artist is pare down what you want to focus on for that particular project. So one way to work towards a project is to sort of work underneath. So that idea of hushing that we talked about, or you're really just quieting yourself and letting ideas come from your unconscious, which is your history, your past, your values, those sort of things. So already knowing, sometimes we already know what project we want to do. For instance, I love to study figure drawing, and I love bright colors. So those two ideas have been sort of incubating in my brain, and one of my future projects will be sort of a painting series, sort of combining those two things. So I already know that, and I'm letting that work together until I sort of have the time to put that together. So honoring a snapshot. Honoring a snapshot is just sort of digging through our memories to try to come up with an idea that really means something to us, is important to us. So it's sort of an image in our mind, a memory that takes us sort of back to a time or a place. And it can be really anything. The smell of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven, peeling paint on a wall. Where does that take you to? Imaginatively analyzing. So I would say that the panda bear painting was an example of imaginatively analyzing. I was analyzing different ideas and putting them together. So what can red do? Well, red makes us feel hungry. Red makes us, it represents anger. Red can represent passion. Let your mind go wild with thinking about some of these different things. So we all have traditions that we were brought up with. Sometimes they're regional. Sometimes we have religious traditions that we live, cultural or musical. So think about what ways you're living those traditions. That would be one way of coming up with an idea. Another way that you come up with an idea is to visit collected works. So what have you created in the past? Maybe you have notes or diaries or sketches. Maybe you could revisit some of those sort of sketches and find ideas that you didn't ever flesh out. Think about what your future looks like, what you're going to be studying, what your work will look like when you go out into the world. So for reflection part 3, so I want you to think back to a time when you had an idea. It doesn't have to be art. It can be really any idea. So it could be totally off the wall. It could be something unique. So for example, when I graduated with my master's degree, I moved to Phoenix, Arizona for a job. And Phoenix is very hot, obviously, and the shade makes a huge difference, but there's not a lot of trees because it's so dry there. So one of the things that I always found myself doing was anywhere I went, I would look in the parking lot for the shadiest spot, and that's where I would park. And I can see that I was not the only one doing this, right? So one of my ideas that I had was I should invent shade covers that have solar panels, right? Well, of course, I didn't do anything with the idea because it isn't my field of study, and it just went by the wayside. Since that time, other people have had that idea, and they've actually followed through with that idea, creating shade and then also creating electricity. It's the perfect combination. So I want you to think back to some idea that you've had in your past where you were filling a need or combining two ideas to make something more fun or something along those lines. And then I do want to remind you that for your final project, you are going to be creating something. You're going to be creating a piece of music. You could be writing a poem. You could, if you loved the collage project, you could do another collage and have sort of a theme that you're following. You could create a piece of art. You could do a sketch or a drawing or a painting. You could paint a mural on your wall or whatever you want to do. So I want you to start, thinking about this and think about what some ideas are. So I want you to narrow down some ideas and record what your thoughts are, even if you don't know 100% what you'll be doing. So due this Sunday at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, you are going to complete the reflection questions on quiz number 4. You're going to go ahead and read chapter 8 in The Creative Habit. That is all about spine and finding sort of the backbone of your projects. You're going to complete the assignment for week 4, which is your MQ, which is metaphor quotient, which is, the idea is it's sort of a parallel to your IQ, but it's something to just go through and have fun with and record your answers on that. If you need more information than what the book provides you, down here there is an additional article that you could go to have another perspective on that MQ. And you're going to participate in discussion post number 4, which is all about brainstorming. All of these things need to be done by Sunday, July 26th at 10 o'clock